Indiana Fever, a team that was once ignored, overlooked, and dismissed. Just a few months ago, Hall of Famer Sheryl Swoopes made a bold statement. Nobody wants to play in Indiana. At the time, it seemed true. The team was stuck in a losing cycle. Free agents weren't interested. The franchise had no buzz. Indiana wasn't just struggling, they were forgotten. But then, everything changed. That takes ages like milk in the sun because Indiana didn't just improve, they became the hottest team in the WNBA. They dominated free agency. They became a top destination overnight. And at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark. But how did this happen so fast? What exactly flipped the script? Today, we're breaking down the incredible rise of the Indiana Fever. How they went from outcast to contenders and how one of the greatest point guards of all time, Sue Bird, just proved this movement is real. Let's get into it. Sheryl Swoopes isn't just any basketball analyst. She's a Hall of Famer, a four-time WNBA champion, and one of the most respected voices in the game. When she speaks, people listen. So when she publicly tore into the Indiana Fever, it wasn't just an opinion, it was a warning. She didn't hold back. She claimed Indiana's locker room was a disaster, that no real star would willingly sign there, and that the franchise was completely dysfunctional. In her eyes, the Fever weren't just struggling. They were a team to avoid at all costs, and she didn't stop there. Swoopes went on what felt like a full-scale media tour, repeating her belief that free agents were running the other way. Every time she spoke, the message was the same. Indiana was a basketball wasteland, and Caitlin Clark had just been sent straight into it. She painted a bleak picture, making it seem like Clark's career was already off to a doomed start before she had even played a single WNBA game. Her words carried weight, and the damage was real. Fans worried. Analysts debated. The idea that Indiana was a dead-end team started to spread. Some even questioned if Clark's star power alone would be enough to turn things around. But what Swoopes didn't expect was how fast everything would change. Because within months, Indiana didn't just shake off her criticism. And that's exactly what we're breaking down next. Just months after being written off, the Indiana Fever flipped the script and made one of the biggest statements in WNBA free agency history. They didn't just sign one big name. They completely reshaped their roster, making it impossible to ignore their rise. At the start of free agency, nobody expected Indiana to be a major player. After all, the narrative was that top players wouldn't touch the Fever with a 10-foot pole. But that changed fast. One by one, big-name talents started choosing Indiana. And not just any players, these were proven veterans and rising stars who could have signed anywhere. Suddenly, the team that was supposedly radioactive became the most exciting destination in the league. This wasn't just a fluke. The Fever made smart, calculated moves that turned them from a team scraping for relevance into a legitimate contender. They weren't just looking to make the playoffs again. They were building a squad that could go deep, maybe even all the way. The shift was undeniable, and the numbers backed it up. Free agents weren't hesitating. They were sprinting to be part of the Caitlin Clark era. And then came the ultimate validation. Sue Bird, one of the most respected voices in women's basketball, saw what was happening and made it clear Indiana was no longer a struggling franchise. When a legend like Sue speaks, the entire league listens. And with her stamp of approval, any remaining doubt about the Fever's transformation disappeared. When it comes to basketball IQ, few voices carry more weight than Sue Bird's. She isn't just a former player, she's one of the greatest to ever do it. A four-time WNBA champion, five-time Olympic gold medalist, and a leader both on and off the court, Sue's opinion isn't just respected, it's law in the basketball world. So when she spoke about the Fever's free agency moves, people listened. And she wasn't just casually impressed, she made it clear that Indiana's roster was coming together in a big way. In her own words, "I think Natasha Howard certainly stands out in terms of what they were able to add. She brings versatility, defense, experience, exactly what they need around Caitlin Clark." That's not just a compliment. That's a statement of validation from one of the best minds in the sport. What makes Sue's words even more powerful is that she doesn't throw around praise lightly. She's not an analyst looking for hot takes, and she's definitely not in the business of hyping teams for attention. When Sue Bird gives an opinion, it's well thought out, measured, and backed by experience. If she says Indiana is onto something, it means the entire WNBA needs to take notice. And here's the kicker. Sue isn't just an outsider giving her thoughts. She's a part owner of the Seattle Storm, which means boosting another team isn't exactly in her best interest. If anything, she should be playing things close to the chest. But instead, she acknowledged what's happening in Indiana in a way that showed both respect and realism. That's why she didn't go overboard. She didn't suddenly declare Indiana the next super team or start throwing around championship guarantees. Instead, she kept it real. Let's pump the brakes on the title talk, but there's no denying they're building something special. That's classic Sue Bird, balanced, honest, and spot on. When a legend like her recognizes what the Fever are doing, it's no longer just a media-driven storyline. It's a reality that the rest of the league has to take seriously. The Indiana Fever didn't just build a roster, they built an identity. Every move they made in free agency wasn't just about adding talent, but about filling specific needs, reinforcing their culture, and surrounding Caitlin Clark with the right pieces to succeed. Let's break down exactly how each addition reshaped this team. If you had to describe Natasha Howard in one word, it would be toughness. She's not just a good defender, she's a game-changing one. A three-time WNBA champion, Defensive Player of the Year, and an absolute nightmare for opposing offenses, Howard brings the kind of grit and experience that turns good teams into contenders. And she's hyped to play alongside Caitlin Clark. She made it clear, saying, "It's going to be Caitlin Clark's show, and we're just here to make sure she shines." That's the kind of veteran presence a young superstar needs. Someone who embraces her role, protects the paint, and keeps the team locked in. For Indiana, Howard isn't just a great addition. She's a necessary one. Last season, the Fever struggled defensively, ranking near the bottom of the league in defensive efficiency. Howard changes that overnight. She's the type of player who makes her teammates better, taking the toughest matchups, setting hard screens, and holding everyone accountable on defense. Every great team needs that player. The one who brings an edge, who isn't afraid to mix it up, who plays with fire on every possession. That's Sophie Cunningham. Known for her ability to do a little bit of everything, she's the ultimate 3-and-D player. She's played every position from point guard to center, and at 6 feet 1 inch, she can switch onto just about anyone. She's physical, she's relentless, and she thrives in high-pressure moments. Her toughness isn't just a mindset, it's a skill. One minute she's diving on the floor for a loose ball, the next she's hitting a dagger 3. That kind of intensity and versatility is invaluable. Indiana didn't just add a shooter or defender, they added a player who changes games. This is the move that really turned heads. Derika Hamby isn't just a solid player, she's an all-star, a 2-time 6th Woman of the Year, and the kind of player who thrives in big moments. The most exciting part? Her connection to head coach Stephanie White. Hamby has already played for White, which means there's no adjustment period. She knows the system, she knows the expectations, and she knows exactly how to contribute. At 6 feet 4 inches with a smooth jumper, an elite post game, and the ability to guard multiple positions, Hamby is a matchup nightmare. She gives Indiana another legit scoring option, a rebounding presence, and a defensive force all in one. Sue Bird summed it up perfectly, saying, "She's got a ton of playoff experience. She can score, she adds a lot to the defensive end." She's almost like an overqualified version of Andre Iguodala. Someone who can take on any role, defend anyone, and make winning plays when it matters most. And then there's Sydney Colson, the heart and soul of this new-look Fever team. Colson might not be the biggest name in this group, but her impact goes beyond stats. She's a defensive specialist, a leader, and, as many would say, the face of the WNBA in terms of personality and presence. She's the one keeping the team loose, the one setting the tone in the locker room, and the one bringing pure vibes to a franchise that suddenly finds itself under the brightest spotlight in basketball. She knows exactly what she's stepping into, saying, "I'm going from a team that was very in the media to another team that is arguably the most talked about team in sports." And she's ready for it. Some analysts are calling this signing one of the most underrated moves of free agency, and honestly, it might just be the most important. Every great team needs glue players, and Colson is the kind of leader who keeps a team together through the highs and lows of a season. With these additions, Indiana isn't just improving, they're transforming. They've built a roster that's balanced, battle-tested, and perfectly designed to maximize Caitlin Clark's strengths. And as free agency proved, the narrative has completely flipped. This isn't a team people are avoiding anymore. It's a team everyone wants to be part of. It's easy to get caught up in the hype and think the Indiana Fever's rise was some kind of overnight miracle. That's exactly the mistake people like Sheryl Swoopes made when she called this a magical rebuild that happened the second Caitlin Clark was drafted. But here's the truth. This team wasn't built in a day. The Fever have been grinding for years. They've been stacking talent, taking tough losses, and slowly, methodically, building something real. Clark didn't create the Fever's resurgence. She just ignited what was already smoldering. This wasn't luck. This was intentional. Before Clark even entered the picture, the Fever already had a franchise cornerstone in Aaliyah Boston. She's the kind of player who doesn't just fill a role, she defines a team's identity. Boston has been anchoring the paint like it's her personal fortress, dominating defensively and proving why she was last year's #1 overall pick. She's an elite rebounder, an efficient scorer, and a defensive leader who makes everyone around her better. The idea that Indiana was just a lottery team with no foundation? Completely false. Boston was the foundation. And she knows how important experience is for success. She said it herself. Adding veteran leadership to this team is going to be huge for our development. You need those voices in the locker room. The Fever were already building towards something, and the offseason moves were just the final pieces of the puzzle. Kelsey Mitchell has been one of the best pure scorers in the WNBA for years. The problem? Nobody was paying attention. She's been grinding through brutal seasons, putting up numbers while the Fever struggled, never getting the recognition she deserved. But now she finally has the spotlight. Re-signing Mitchell was critical for Indiana. She's not just a veteran presence. She's a bucket getter who can take pressure off Caitlin Clark. Defenses won't be able to collapse on Clark because Mitchell is a proven shooter who will torch teams if they do. And let's be real. Mitchell could have left. She would have jumped to another team and started fresh. But she stayed because she believes in what the Fever are building. Every contender needs a player who does the dirty work, the one who scraps for every loose ball, plays relentless defense, and makes the hustle plays that don't show up on the stat sheet. That's Lexi Hull. She's not a superstar, but she's the kind of player who makes a team better just by being on the floor. Her energy is contagious. Her versatility gives Indiana flexibility in lineups. She's the ultimate role player, someone who connects the team and does whatever it takes to win. And let's talk about the woman leading the charge. Stephanie White isn't some placeholder coach riding Clark's coattails. She's a championship-winning leader who knows how to build a winning culture. She's been to the top before. She understands what it takes to construct a team, not just assemble talent. She's already made it clear. This isn't just about hype, it's about banners. She said it best. Our ultimate goal is to hang another banner in the field house. That's the mindset of a coach who isn't satisfied with making the playoffs or just being competitive. She's setting a championship standard. Here's what people forget. The Fever made the playoffs last year. This wasn't a team stuck in the basement with no direction. They were already climbing. Caitlin Clark didn't change the course of the franchise. She accelerated it. This team had the foundation, the talent, and the structure in place before she got there. Now, they've added the final pieces, and they're ready to take that next step. This isn't a Cinderella story. It's a calculated rise, and the rest of the WNBA better be ready. The Indiana Fever aren't content with just being good, they're gunning for greatness. Caitlin Clark didn't come to Indiana to simply try her best. She came to stack trophies, earn MVPs, win championships, and build a legacy. This team isn't here to be a flash in the pan. They're on a mission to become the next dynasty. Based on what we've seen, they're not just talking about success, they're actively building it. And for everyone still doubting, still nitpicking, or clinging to old narratives, just listen to Sue Bird. She's made it clear. For everyone still doubting, still nitpicking, still clinging to old narratives, Sue Bird sees you, and she's here to let you know you're wrong. This isn't a phase, and it isn't just hype. This is the future of the WNBA unfolding right before our eyes. The Indiana Fever have arrived, Caitlin Clark's behind the wheel, and the haters, they're getting lapped. Are you excited about this Fever team? Let us know in the comments, like this video, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss an update. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.